Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome, as always, to our coffee times to talk about horror movies. And today I bring you one of those videos that I know a lot of people love to watch every year. We're here to talk about some of my most disappointing watches of 2021.
It's coffee time!
Now this year I decided to approach this video in a little different way. I'm not here to talk to you about movies that were hot garbage. I'm here to talk about movies that disappointed me, movies that I had high expectations for, movies that I was excited to watch, and those movies just didn't meet those expectations. They just didn't get me excited at all, and they were just a little bit disappointing, some more than others. So I'm just here to talk about movies that for me just flopped. As in my favorite horror movies video of 2021, the list is 10 movies, but they are in no particular order. And the first movie that I would like to talk to you about is a movie by a director that is so far either a hit or miss for me. And the movie that I'm talking to you about is Old. Written, directed and produced by M. Night Shyamalan, it is based on the French language Swiss graphic novel Sand Castle. This movie basically takes place on an island, so we find different types of characters, different families that decide to go to a resort for the holidays to kind of, some of them to rekindle, some other ones just to get some time off from their regular lives. And at the resort, our main family are told that there is this amazing beach that is not crowded at all by tourists and they should go and check it out, and that's what they do. As you can see by the trailer, once they go to this specific beach, weird things start to happen, and what starts to happen is that our main characters start to age really quickly. For me, this movie felt really long at times. For me, it was dragging, and I feel like this movie had a great premise. I absolutely loved the idea once I heard it, once I saw the trailer, and I was excited about it. And there are many cool moments in the film. I feel like part of why I didn't enjoy it so much is because the character development flopped for me. I felt like the characters were really thinly written to the point where I didn't care for the characters at all, and things progressed so quickly at times that you don't really have time to build this connection with the characters. Another thing is that this movie doesn't really go all out with the specific gore or the bloody moments. It's a little bit more PG-13, and I felt like that was maybe a missed opportunity. I feel like I would have loved to see a little bit more gruesome moments in this film. And towards the end, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but basically they're trying to give you explanations for everything in a way that didn't work for me. I didn't like the ending at all, and that is why I was just disappointed by this film. I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but it was just not what I expected. Next, we're going to talk about a movie that breaks my heart to put in this list because I was extremely excited about this movie. But that is also why I have decided to put it here. I did enjoy the movie, but it was very disappointing to me, and that is Antlers. This supernatural horror film follows a school teacher in an isolated Oregon town as she suspects that one of her students is suffering from personal problems. However, what she doesn't know is that deep in this student's house there is a bigger secret. Now, this movie does a good job when it comes to the atmosphere. It was really dark. A lot of the shots are really dark. It has a creature, so it's kind of like a creature feature, and the problem is that it is bringing nothing new to the table. This movie of course has a deeper meaning about humanity, about depression, about the darkness of the humankind, but sadly it's all things that we've been seen done before, and there is nothing really fresh and exciting about the film. So all in all, you know, the acting was decent. I really enjoyed to see the creature when we got the chance to, but in general it's not a movie that brought anything new to the table. It didn't attempt to be original in any way, shape or form, and that is why it was a disappointment for me, because I felt like I was watching something that I've seen before, and I was expecting this movie so much because, as you know guys, Guillermo del Toro was involved with the film, And yeah, that's what I decided to put it on this list, because it was just a big disappointment for me, but I still think that the movie is worth a watch. Our next film is a movie that I did a full review on, and you already guys know that I didn't like this movie at all, and that is Wrong Turn. Now, this is supposed to be a reboot of the franchise, but was it? Not really. This was just a big mess of a film. Originally known as Wrong Turn: The Foundation, this film follows Jen and her friends that set off on the Appalachian Trail, and despite repeated warnings, decide to stray off course. They soon encounter an isolated group of mountain people. Now, this movie was really disappointing because I feel like the movie also didn't know what it wanted to be. The film started quite alright until we take a turn, and I started to feel like I was gonna hate this film. You know, the thing is, there are some nice visuals, there are again some nice ideas that were put into the film, but the problem was the way that this movie was sold, which was a reboot of the franchise, and the only thing that it has in common with the franchise is the title. The problem is that the film also was not really scary or engaging. I just feel like they had a lot of good ideas, and then they tried to put too much into one film, and it ended up being a hot mess, and they didn't really know what this movie was supposed to be about, and that's why this movie was a little bit pointless in my opinion, but that's just me. I just think that maybe if they would have repackaged the movie in a different way and edited things differently, given it another title, maybe it would have worked better. Our next movie is Candyman. Now, here's another one that I have a problem with because it has really not much in common with the original trilogy, and that was a huge issue for me when I went to the cinema, because I was expecting what they promised, which was kind of like a sequel slash reboot of the franchise. Anthony is a struggling artist that has not been painting, and the deadline for his next exhibition is coming closer. After an encounter with an old resident of Cabrini, Anthony is exposed to the true story behind Candyman. One thing that I really enjoyed about this one was being able to return to some of the sets that we know, like neighborhoods that we know from the first films, and it brought a lot of nostalgia, but at the same time I felt like this movie was trying so hard to bring a social commentary across, and they tried so hard, and the script was full of comments about that commentary, you know, that it just at some point was really annoying to me. But one thing that I really loved about this film was most of the death scenes and the gore. I thought it was genius, especially the last scenes were fantastic. I thought that they were great. Sometimes, sadly, the violence happened off camera, which is something that really annoys me. As a viewer, if I'm going to watch a horror movie and there's somebody that's going to be killed, I like to see something at least. I just hate when the camera just doesn't let me see. But that's a pet peeve of mine. I just feel like all in all this was really disappointing to me because I was expecting a proper sequel, and it's not what happened, and it was not the Candyman that I wanted. And we are following the trend of franchises that are not anything like the rest of the movies in the franchise, because we have here the forever Purge. This is another movie that I was extremely excited about because, as you guys know, I am a sucker for the franchise and they are kind of my guilty pleasure watches. I really love them. And then when I went to see this movie, I was extremely disappointed because, again, most of what the movie makes it a Purge sequel is just the title, and that was really annoying. The movie follows a couple. They are Mexican and they are crossing the border into the United States looking for a better chance at life, at a better life. And while they're working there and at their new jobs, the next Purge comes around. And honestly, the Purge doesn't really bring anything to this film. It has nothing to help or nothing that affects the storyline. This was basically a movie that could have been just an action slash drama film about immigration, and it probably would have worked better. The movie of course has some nice moments, but honestly it was in general a disappointment. This is another movie that also had a social commentary that, you know, it is something that we should talk about and address, but again, the way that they were trying to put that across with so many comments in the script and stuff, it just became too repetitive and annoying as well. And yeah, another big disappointment for me, because you guys know that I really enjoy the Purge movies, and this one was just not a Purge movie. Well, it seems that we keep going with the franchises that disappointed me in 2021. Maybe that's how I should call this video, franchises that disappointed me in 2021, because we have Spiral, Book of Saw. This movie serves as the 9th installment in the Saw film series. Working in the shadow of his father, Detective Ezekiel Banks and his rookie partner take charge of an investigation into grisly murders that are eerily reminiscent of the city's gruesome past. One of my biggest problems with this film was the humor at times. It didn't land for me, and there were a lot of moments where Chris Rock was trying to be serious and it didn't work. I couldn't believe him in his character. I did enjoy the kills, but they were so little, so little kills, and this movie just again felt not like a Saw movie, and it left me really disappointed. It felt like this movie was trying to be something bigger, something crazier, something more shocking than what it really was, and it shows. It's also a movie that had a soundtrack that was really distracting to me, and it's a movie that was predictable as well. It just, I kind of had a little bit higher hopes for this one. I mean, it's not a horrible movie, but again, I'm talking about movies that disappointed me in 2021, and this is definitely one of them. This movie honestly could have been your typical detective story about a serial killer, and it would have been fine. Like, it's just a Saw movie because we have Jigsaw coming back, but that's about it. Our next movie, it is part of a franchise, I guess, because it is a sequel, and even though I really enjoyed many things about this film, I still was left with kind of mixed feelings about it, and that is Don't Breathe 2. The film starts 8 years after the events of the first movie, and we follow blind veteran Normal Nordstrom that has been hiding out for several years in an isolated cabin. He lives now with a young girl and has recreated the family stolen from him by a drunken driver. This movie had many good things going for it because we really did get to expand the universe from the first film. We are not trapped just in one house like we were in the first film, and we get to explore more about Norman's character. However, after the twist that happened at the end of the first film, it is really hard for me as a viewer to empathize with the character and to feel pity for him, which is kind of what they were trying to do with him here as a character. They were trying to redeem him as a villain, and it didn't really quite work for me. However, when it comes to the way that the films were shot, there was specifically like a scene that happens in the house that is kind of like a chasing scene, and I thought the camera work was fantastic. I loved how gruesome the deaths were, the gore. I absolutely loved it. I love that they brought new characters into the mix and that they were trying to find a more intricate plot line, trying to get that shock value that we got from the first film. But I still feel like they tried too hard at times, and the ending was kind of, I guess, bittersweet for me because, again, I could not forgive Norman for what he had done at the end of the first film. I feel like if you enjoy the first one, you are going to enjoy the second one as well, and if you don't mind so much about, you know, his character being a villain, maybe you'll enjoy it more than I did. I think in general it was a decent sequel. I guess I was just expecting something else. Moving on with the next movie, that I don't think it's a bad film, but I was kind of expecting a little bit more from it, and that is The Deep House. This is a French supernatural horror film. While diving in a remote French lake, two YouTubers who specialize in underwater exploration videos discover a house submerged in deep waters. Their dive turns into a nightmare when they discover the house was the scene of various crimes. So this is basically your typical ghost haunted house story, just kind of flipped and done underwater, which was a fantastic idea, and it brings so many opportunities when it comes to the cinematography. I think I was really excited to see all the rooms inside of this submerged house that had been there for so long. And you know, it also can get really claustrophobic when you are underwater. Those are kind of the things that you can use for a lot of tension when you have such a film. I just feel like the movie, it got repetitive too quickly, and I feel like the characters again were so thin that you didn't care if they lived or they died. And on top of that, they did use a lot of jump scares that, you know, some of them work, some others didn't work so much. It was a really interesting found footage film, and it really did have a lot of creepy images, and there's many like unsettling moments, but at the end of the day, the plot and the narrative were so thin that it kind of was a movie that didn't have a proper storyline. And next we have yet another sequel. Wow, sequels have not been really doing well in 2021, same as remakes and reboots. So this one is Escape Room Tournament of Champions. After escaping the escape rooms orchestrated by the Minos Corporation, Zoe and Ben decide to confront the shadowy organization after finding coordinates to its New York City-based headquarters. While they are in New York, they go into the subway and they are all trapped in one of the coaches, and they're basically trapped with other sole survivors from the game, and they soon realize that they are back into escape room. Now, my problem with this film was that honestly, I could only care about Ben as a character. The other survivors, the other champions from the other games, since I didn't see them go through all of the challenges, I didn't have the same connection that I had with Zoe and Ben. I know it is very, you know, wishful thinking, but I think it would have been cool to see a separate movie for each of the champions and then see them in this tournament of champions. And then I would really have gotten to know all of the characters in previous movies, and now we would have this big finale with all of our champions that we were rooting for. One thing that I would like to praise about this film is that obviously it's really cool to see all of the images of the rooms and how they work and the puzzles and how to solve them. That it's something that of course is really intriguing about these films. That is what makes these movies compelling. But in a way it kind of felt like this movie was a little bit a remake of the first one, and a lot of things that they used in the first movie are again used in the sequel. Plus they went so quickly through rooms and challenges and things that it just felt rushed in a way, and the ending was predictable, at least to me. So I was really excited about this one. I love everything that has to do with games and tournaments and escape rooms. I find it really entertaining, and you know, it was nice to see them go through the rooms, but it didn't have the same wow factor that I got with the first film. And to finish, in number 10 we have The Seventh Day. In this American horror film, we follow a rookie priest that arrives for his first day of training with a renowned exorcist. As they plunge deeper into hell on earth, the lines between good and evil blur and their own demons emerge. Let's talk about the main problem with this movie. There is no plot, okay? There is no real story plot. They tried hard to reinvent the exorcism subgenre in horror movies, and it didn't quite work. The big issues with this movie is that the scares were basically non-existent, which is important for a horror movie to have, maybe not just scares, but like that really creepy, unsettling atmosphere that really puts you at the edge of your seat, keeps you in tension. All of that was not really there. And also there was a problem with the storyline, which basically was also super predictable, and that takes away the fun of such films. Pierce does a good job to portray this character that sadly was underdeveloped, so you know, it was not really his fault. And the issue with this film is that it has some good ideas, but they don't bring them to their full potential. It's almost like they're too scared to really go all out, and things are a little bit kind of mentioned or hinted to, but they don't fully commit to those ideas. And that, together with the fact that we don't really get these connection, this time with the characters to develop a relationship with them, just make this whole movie a little bit pointless because we don't really have a proper storyline. It's predictable whatever we have, plus the characters are also not well fleshed out and we can also not invest even with those. So it just ended up being kind of like, it just backfired. They were trying to put a new spin in the exorcism genre and it kind of just backfired. Alright guys, so these are 10 movies that I, for one way or another, was excited to check out or had higher expectations for, and they just didn't work for me. Now, as I've mentioned, some of these movies are actually really great movies. Other ones I would recommend you guys to check it out, but maybe they just were not what I expected from them, so they disappointed me. Let me know down below which movies you were really excited about and disappointed you in 2021, or maybe you love one of these movies that I have mentioned. I'm so sorry. If you are a huge lover of one of these movies, let me know why in the comments down below. I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on these films. That is the most interesting part, is to talk to other people about movies that you loved or you didn't love so much and see what they have to say about it. Thank you so much, as always, you guys, for watching. Please give the video a big thumbs up for support, and I hope to see you all, as always, in our next coffee times. Bye!